home, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane.
Ready, set, go. Okay, we have a short edition of the Fast Lane because we have Virginia Tech baseball at 5:30 tonight. Tomorrow, the Frozen Four at 5:15. And then more Virginia Tech baseball series opener against Florida State Friday at 5:30 p.m. So we're going right now into so many things we have yet to discuss in the Fast Lane to kick off the Fast Five at 5-ish.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
Bad news. Liberty Flames defensive tackle Chris Bowtie announcing he is entering the transfer portal. I mean, call me skeptical in this day and age, but my natural reaction is, all right, where's he going? How many
dollar bills, y'all,
is he going to be getting? Now, this is not a guy that will command high-end market money because he's kind of a little undersized, 6'1", 6'2", short of 300 pounds, under 300 pounds. But he does fit the description of what Virginia Tech has often wanted at defensive tackle. Other programs that have resourceful positioning, and remember, this is a Virginia Tech team. We'll just throw them in there. I'm not saying he's going there, but they've got a lot of questions that we will get to momentarily. But offensive linemen, defensive linemen, this time of year, you often get players whose value may increase because the school looks at their depth chart and goes, we have more holes than we anticipated. And fortunately for us, we have enough
dollar bills, y'all,
to mask those holes. Meanwhile, for Liberty, the good news is they might have upgraded on the offensive line. I know Trey discussed this last week with Bryson Gordon. We did not get to it with John Manson because we were touching on basketball transfers. Don't worry, we'll get to plenty of football-related transfer news when John joins us Monday in covering the Commonwealth. But my favorite player for the Liberty Flames already this year, DeJaquan Jackson. I might be butchering the name, but when you have 3 capitals and 2 apostrophes in your name, that is an all-star name right there. D-A apostrophe capital J-Y apostrophe Q-U, if only it were Q-W.
That was fun to
Q-U-W-A-N.
explain. That was fun to explain on the morning warm-up. By the way, shout out to Bryson for coming to pay the piper for finishing behind all 3 of us, including Ty, in the bracket group. And shout out to you, because we haven't done this since the national championship. Congrats. You won the 6-man bracket group. And the person that finished last may appear on the morning warm-up either Thursday or Friday this week.
To atone for his bad performance?
Yes, the Mr. Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in the NFL.
Well, we'll take that opinion with about the amount of seriousness that his bracket deserves. But DeJaquan Jackson, yes, D-A apostrophe capital J-Y apostrophe Q-U-W-A-N Jackson. Actually, this is a logical signing for the Liberty Flames. He's an O-line prospect. They could use more of those. Having seen them in the spring game, Ty and I discussed it immediately afterwards. Ty, of course, having played on the line at Heritage and at Virginia Union. But he addresses an area where, if nothing else, the Flames need more depth pieces. He's also coming to one of the better offensive line coaches in college football. And more on Philip Doss when he joins us the next time in the Fast Lane. He can weigh in on the impact of that. But here's the things I like. 6'5", 300 pounds. Offers were solid. Okay, he took an unofficial visit to Ole Miss. Maybe he was more interested than they were because his offers were FIU, Sunbelt team, FIU, CUSA rival for Liberty. Georgia State, another CUSA rival, Sam Houston State. Southern Miss, Marshall, ironically, because Southern Miss's coach is the former Marshall coach, as well as New Mexico State, and then Purdue and Iowa State, which, I kind of lump Purdue and Iowa State into the load of maybe it's more just to do some developmental research on a guy like DeJaquan Jackson.
Purdue and Iowa State, I would say Purdue is more like just they need bodies because their roster is empty, and they also, were awful last year.
Yes, they were terrible last year under their former coach who's since been replaced. But here's the thing I like about DeJaquan Jackson coming from Liberty. He comes from Coffeyville Community College. And, he's scheduled to graduate from Coffeyville in May and enroll in Liberty. But remember this, there are rulings out there that community college and Division II and Division III years do not count against your eligibility, meaning there may be more than 1 year of eligibility for DeJaquan Jackson for Liberty. And when you have one of the better offensive line coaches in college football, you couple that with the fact that the Flames have a need, you might get a guy that on the surface is a 1 year transfer, but might actually be able to give you more production than that.
Number 4.
Meanwhile, speaking of the Liberty Flames, Brooke Roberts hit a game-winning walk-off 2-run double in the 7th inning, giving Liberty a come-from-behind victory over UVA 4-3 at Liberty Softball Park last night. Good win for Liberty. In Virginia, they have fallen mightily since getting hot to start the year. They're now 27-13. But for the Flames, they tack on another impressive victory. I don't know how much it's going to be mandatory to have one of these to make the NCAA tournament, even if they don't win the CUSA tournament, because they've won every series they played this year. They're not undefeated, but they've won every series they played in CUSA this year. They're number 21 in the country already. And if the Flames continue taking care of business, there will be, I don't think Dr. Dot Richardson wants to operate this way, but we'll say it for her. There will be some margin for error for the Lady Flames softball program, which, you couple that with the success baseball's had, spring sports at Liberty right now are actually a lot of fun if you're looking for compelling winning teams. And the fact that Brooke Roberts was the latest to contribute to a Liberty lineup that's loaded, she gave them the 4-3 victory over UVA last night. This is a good program right now for Liberty. Speaking of transfers, by the way, involving the Liberty Flames.
Number 3.
Asia Boone announcing she is transferring out of Liberty University. Your old guy, Trey, and I guess you could say ours because he joined us multiple times and was great to us in the fast lane. Kenny Brooks reportedly eyeing Asia Boone.
That's what Bryson Gordon said this morning.
That is what Bryson Gordon said in the morning warm-up. If you missed it, the morning warm-up, wherever you listen to podcasts, or VTR in Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube to catch the video version if you're down for that. I hear younger people are. I don't have time to watch videos, but I can listen to the podcast as I did earlier today. This is the reality for Liberty women's basketball. You're going to have players like this. The stinger is she was a Conference USA Freshman of the Year. She's now entering the transfer portal. The fact that Kentucky's at least showing interest indicates there are probably other bigger name programs. And this is the other reality of college hoops. Again, I don't fault Asia Boone for going out and taking advantage of any monetary opportunities. You're just not going to get that many in women's basketball compared to men's basketball. Not that you can't go after them in men's hoops, but in women's basketball, some of these players make more in college than they do when they get to the WNBA. Now, that might change in the next couple of years when labor stoppage occurs, rising TV revenue, hello, Caitlin Clark. All of that means there will be more money to go to the players. And I know she's not popular according to some, but she's popular according to the fact that you watch. The Caitlin Clark rising tide lifting all boats has an impact across the board. And that's where I don't fault Asia Boone. It just stinks for Liberty because you had a good year with a freshman, you developed your skill set, and look, it's a smart business decision to go out and take the money elsewhere. It just stings for Liberty that you're on the verge of losing one of your key contributors. Speaking of losing key contributors,
Number 2.
Virginia will lose one of their key contributors from the 2019 National Championship team. Kyle Guy announced the other day he will not return as an assistant coach for Ryan Odom with UVA. The reality is, again, these are the type of changes that were naturally going to transpire. You want to keep a couple of holdovers, people who understand the dynamics of UVA, where, yes, there's name, image, and likeness, reportedly $7 million for basketball players to be added, and they've already picked up a number of three-point shooters in the transfer portal. That's kind of been the focal point, is guys who are 3-and-D players. They'll defend, they play three, it's going to look a lot different. Kyle Guy is a guy that, pun intended with that, by the way, Kyle Guy is a player and a person who embodies a lot of the values of what you want. But again, when you're trying to change and flip the roster and the idea of what the players play and how they play, as great as Kyle Guy was, he fit what Tony Bennett and that staff wanted culturally and schematically. Probably fits culturally what Ryan Odom wants, but schematically, it's going to be a much more malleable roster, and that's where you hate it for a guy like Kyle Guy, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Could he potentially wind up here in the Hill City as an assistant? If there was ever an opening on Richie McKay's staff, I would never rule that out for anybody with ties to UVA basketball going to Liberty in any capacity, because while Tony Bennett may have left, his influence is still around college basketball with Richie McKay, who, by the way, again, I credit Richie McKay because he has evolved. They play much more up-tempo than people think. Oh, Tony Bennett disciple. Not exactly the case, but I would not be surprised to ever see that happening. I have no inside knowledge to break in the fast lane, but that's one of them. The other for Virginia basketball, as we continue along in the Fast Five at 5-ish, right off the get-go, we have neglected these headlines. Ryan Odom also announced the smart moves. Mike Curtis will return for his 17th season, strength and conditioning coach, and Ethan Saliba, 43rd season as the UVA team doctor, basically, officially called the Associate Athletic Director for Sports Medicine. These are guys that have no schematic ties to what Virginia would want. Mike Curtis is the closest because he developed players for Tony Bennett, and Bennett credited him numerous times, and you can go back again, Fastlane Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts. Each time we spoke with Tony Bennett in our chats, we have, 3 or 4 of them at Fastlane Ed Lane where you listen to podcasts if you want to go back and listen. But Bennett always credited Mike Curtis for being such a key piece in developing players to where they could move around defensively. And the numbers don't lie. By the way, Trey, it's not Reese Beckman, as you said on the morning warm-up.
It's Beekman. I knew it. I mean, I was more just commenting on capture the flag teams that Ty and I love to talk about. But by the way, that is maybe the best tanking term I've heard.
Was that yours, by the way?
No, I saw it online. I saw it online. But it makes sense. Like, I think I saw it online. Another good one is for your Sixers. Shout out to Tim McMahon, who calls them the top Sixers because they need to finish in the top 6 to get their pick.
Yes, they do.
That's another good one. And luckily for them, it appears that they will finish in the top 6, maybe in the top 5. So they, 1, have a shot at Cooper Flag, and 2, will not give their pick to maybe the next NBA champion, the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into more playoff talk previews as we get closer to the NBA playoffs. I think the West looks pretty crystallized right now, at least the top 4 teams. The one dark horse that I would flip in there is Houston's a top 4 seed. I don't really think they will likely win, but the Clippers are outside of that, and maybe you have a good chance to kind of burst in. But that topic we'll discuss later. But for UVA, back to the point at hand. We need to get a soundbite for taking detours and getting back on track. Mike Curtis back for UVA. He was instrumental in Tony Bennett, but his greatest strength is having guys with the stamina to continue to move defensively. Now, UVA slowed it down offensively, but the same principles apply in Ryan Odom. In terms of footwork and movement, they'll move the pace a little more, but that does not change the value of a guy like Mike Curtis to UVA. And then Ethan Saliba, I mean, I don't pretend to be a medical expert in the fast lane. If you're a partner of a medical company or a medical expertise area, we'd love to have you as a partner. I will not mention others because, you have to pay to play in this racket. But Ethan Saliba has been the athletic trainer for Virginia men's basketball for 43 years. That goes back to the Terry Holland days, Jeff Jones, hold your breath, UVA, but Dave Lato and others, including Tony Bennett. His skill set is not getting guys ready or how they fit schematically. It's having them at peak health and understanding what the body needs. And clearly he's adapted with the times, and it's a wise decision for Ryan Odom to keep those guys around. Meanwhile, guys that are maybe forcibly sticking around.
Number 1.
Kyron Drones. Virginia Tech Hokies head football coach Brent Pry put out a statement through the communications department over the weekend. Kyron Drones, let me start here. Quote, Kyron Drones is scheduled to have a minor medical procedure, and we've made the decision to hold him out for the remainder of spring practice, which goes through the spring football game this Saturday. You might catch the tail end of it after Virginia Tech baseball, VTR and Sports app. Kyron has demonstrated, back to the statement, Kyron has demonstrated excellent leadership and has had an outstanding winter and spring. We fully anticipate he will be ready to return for summer workouts. David Cunningham touched on this earlier in the fast lane this week. You may have Andrew Alex coming to the morning warm-up later this week. If I'm overstepping my bounds and promoting that, you can certainly interject, Trey. But I would say this. The offensive line is a work in progress for Virginia Tech. Not that you would have contact anyway for Kyron Drones, but I don't know what evaluation you're really going to get for a running-based quarterback when there's not going to be much contact. So you're not really simulating that in the early going. You have an offensive line where, okay, learning to throw under minimal protection might be something he needs to work on. But maybe they've already gotten the grasp of that as we've gone forward, and Pop Watson is still a mobile quarterback. Not the big element of Drones, but somebody that can at least simulate enough of that to hopefully get the offensive line progressing in some form or fashion for Virginia Tech football. This is precautionary, but it might be a blessing in disguise for the Hokies because, as we noted earlier in the Fast Five at 5-ish, with Chris Bowtie transferring out of Liberty because maybe somebody sees they need a good defensive lineman and maybe he's able to get a little bit more financially to give himself the opportunity. Kyron Drones' injuries from the end of last year to being held out through the remainder of camp this year and seemingly not really being back at full strength at all this spring, kind of dampening his market. And it may be one of those, they're both back together, if nothing more than the fact that business-wise, it's in the best interest for Pry and Virginia Tech and quarterback Kyron Drones to be together despite the moving parts, particularly the offensive line and a new offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the biggest concern is he wouldn't get hit in, practice at all. My concern is him just learning the new offense. But, Ty and Philip kind of gave me some good confidence because, unlike them, they know how to play football. We don't. Well, I know how to play the basics, but they are, again, I am the 5th best athlete here. Well, you know what? I don't know about DJ skills yet. So I'd be, I'd be 4th. I think I'm 4th. So maybe TJ and I need to play one-on-one to figure that out. But I'm at worst. I'm at best the 4th best athlete at the Virginia Talk Radio, or VTRN Sports, I should say. And so they provide a good insight, and I feel a lot better about Drones learning the offense. He'll be in all the meetings and stuff, and I'd rather be safe than sorry when it comes to injuries. And I think this is ultimately a good move.
It is, and I mean, Virginia Tech, let's be real here. They need Kyron Drones fully healthy and ready to go to probably take a lot of a physical beating, especially early in the year with South Carolina at the neutral site and then Vanderbilt after that. Meanwhile, when we return in the fast lane, we won't get into that yet with Paul Stone, pro handicapper. But when we return, his observations on the Masters, outrights, dark horses, and more. This is the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app and VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube.
Mark Dalton here with the Terry Auto Group. If you don't love your car, then you're simply just driving the wrong one. At Terry Volkswagen, Terry Subaru, Terry Auto Outlet, and the Terry Clearance Center, we've got the perfect new or used car for you. We make your car buying experience easy. Need help with imperfect credit? No problem. Our team works hard to get you approved and back on the road. Because when you shop at Terry, you drive away happy. Visit us at any of our 4 locations or online at terryautogroup.com. Terry Auto Group. You'll love our cars.
When you're voted one of the best plumbers according to Lynchburg Living magazine, you want to hire the best. Sullivan Plumbing wants the best plumbers to join our award-winning team. Do you have a clean driving record? Do you have at least 4 years plumbing experience? Then you're a 5-star recruit, and Sullivan Plumbing would love to meet with you. Take the first step. Call Sullivan Plumbing in downtown Lynchburg or email sullivanplumbing@gmail.com.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Experience, reputation, growth. These are what make Brownstone Properties the area's most trusted property management company. With the recent addition of 15 new communities at Smith Mountain Lake, we have expanded our HOA portfolio to over 80 communities across the region. Combine these with over 2,500 residential units, and it's easy to see why our reputation and business continue to grow. Let our experience work for you. Visit us today at brownstoneproperties.com or 3720 Old Forest Road in Lynchburg.
Allstate agent Donovan Howell is now serving Lynchburg. He lives and works here just like you. And with all kinds of local insurance advice, Donovan is someone you can count on to help you protect all that's good in your life. Donovan makes it easy to save on the quality protection you need, and he'll even help you do the switching and the paperwork for you.
Call or come by the Donovan Howell Allstate office in Windhurst today.
Are you ready to move to the next chapter of your life? That means you're ready for us. Hi, I'm Moyanne Harding, the region's only total turnkey realtor and interior designer. We'll come to you and help you decide what you're ready to let go of and bring you top dollar for those unwanted items. Most importantly, we'll sell your most valuable investment, your home. With decades of experience, just hand your keys to us and let the stress melt away. Call me today and book your consultation, www.moyanne.com.
Moyanne Harding, brokered by Keller Williams.
Your home is more than just walls and windows. It's where life happens. And at Right Choice Construction, we get that. We're not just builders. We're fathers, mothers, neighbors, just like you. and every nail and every beam reflects our commitment to creating a place you're proud to live in. With Right Choice Construction, you're choosing a team that's been perfecting the art of building for years. So build with us, build with experience, build with quality, build with Right Choice.
Do you know what a cold climate heat pump is? They're a new generation of heat pumps from Tara Lee Mosley that provide substantially more heat than traditional heat pumps, even when it's 5 degrees outside. This means your electrical auxiliary heat runs less, saving you big time on your electric bill. And with the recent spikes in electric utility rates, that's crucial. Plus, these new heat pumps qualify you for a $2,000 federal tax credit. Contact Tara Lee Mosley for more info on the new cold climate heat pumps.
Are you a fan of fireworks or collecting sports memorabilia? Or maybe instead of the bar, you want to spend your nights at the ballpark? Whatever your passion, the Lynchburg Hillcats have a mini plan package for you. Make sure to secure your tickets for every Thirsty Thursday, Freebie Friday, or fireworks show Saturday with one of our dated mini plans. Craving more baseball? Sign up for our 30-game mini plan. Not sure what games you want to go to? The Hillcats offer undated mini plans as well. For more information and to purchase your 2024 mini plan, visit lynchburg-hillcats.com.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
Because we have no shame in self-promotion, and why should we? We have Virginia Tech baseball, 5:30 p.m. on the VTR in Sports app and our live feed.
In 6 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yes, but because we have VTR in Sports and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook Live, YouTube, and the podcast platform, we are going to get along with our guest, Paul Stone, pro handicapper who joins us now in the Fast Lane. Paul, a pleasure to be speaking with you as always. First and foremost, take a victory lap here in the Fast Lane. If I heard correctly on the Paul Stone Sports podcast, and they all blur together over the last handful of weeks, a few months ago, you gave out Florida, I believe, at 12-1 to win the national championship, and you finished atop the VSiN College Basketball Challenge, capping what was a very good and very much deserved and well-earned college basketball season for paulstonesports.org subscribers.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ed. I tell you, the college basketball, from a betting perspective, it started back in early November, so it's a 5-month grind, and there's so many peaks and valleys and ups and downs and ebbs and flows. You gotta roll with the flow. You gotta take the punches. Sometimes you're going to be, in a losing streak, and other times you'll be winning. And thankfully, from about late January on, I got on a pretty good run and was able to win that circuit contest and close the season strong. So pretty exhausting, but a whole lot of fun. There's a lot of pleasure and a lot of just a lot of value in it. I enjoy doing it. Oddly enough, I love handicapping. So, yeah, it was a great college basketball season, and now going to look at the Masters and pretty much be moving on towards college football. It'll be here before we get it as well, before we know it as well.
Paul, one more nugget on that, by the way. You mentioned getting on a bit of a good run as we progressed over the college basketball season and how that carried to your pick of Florida to win the national title back in the day at 12-1, ultimately cashing on Monday night. When you get into a heater, do you add more in terms of what you're betting? Or are you generally pretty consistent based upon your values, knowing that this is an ebb and flow and you never know when the tide will turn for or against you?
Yeah, it's the latter. I don't really add much. I might add a little bit, but I'm pretty much an even better. I'm during the college basketball season, I made hundreds of, I should know the number off the top of my head, but made hundreds of premium selections, top selections that I played. And, being that kind of a volume player and being somebody who plays each and every day, you just never know when the tide will turn. So I'm pretty even. I don't get too depressed when I'm losing and cut back, nor do I get over the top confident and cocky when I'm winning. So I keep it pretty even.
Pro handicapper Paul Stone with us here in the Fast Lane. He does college basketball, college football, and PGA Tour golf, which leads us to Augusta National and the Masters. Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, then a drop off to the tiers after that, which we'll get to momentarily. But starting with the two prohibitive favorites at 4-1, Scotty Scheffler, 6-7-1, depending on where you look for Rory McIlroy. Do you have a play on either of those this coming weekend?
Yeah, I made 6 plays as far as outright an outright win market. And, I think you got to pick either Scheffler or McIlroy if you want a balanced portfolio. Scotty Scheffler obviously has had great success at Augusta, but I'm a little bit concerned about that hand. I was able to get Roy McIlroy at plus 767, so a little bit better than 7.5 to 1. He obviously needs the Masters to complete the career Grand Slam. All the metrics are very favorable. Outstanding current form, and there at Augusta, 7 top 10s in his last 11 appearances, second back in 2022. Time's running out for him to win this tournament, and I think he's going to win it one of these days, and might it be this Sunday that he slips on that green jacket.
Paul Stone hanging out with us today here in the Fast Lane. We're looking up and down the Masters leaderboard, and you mentioned those favorites and maybe getting somebody that breaks through. One of the things people often want to know is other golfers that have captured your interest, particularly golfers that have been in form lately. Who else has piqued your interest as a golfer who's in form where you believe the momentum translates to Augusta National?
I've got an outright on Shane Lowry at a little bit better than 40 to 1, and the Irishman, 4 top 25s at Augusta since the 2020 Masters. That includes a tied for third in 2023. I mean, he's just playing as good a golf as he's played in his career. So Shane Lowry is a guy that his constitution and just his demeanor and everything about him just translates very favorably, I think, to Augusta. He would be one. And then a long shot, I've got Lowry at, again, almost 41 to 1. And then a long shot that I played, who I think could be a factor, is Daniel Berger. I got him at a little better than 162 to 1. Coming off a back injury is Berger. They're sidelined him for more than a year. So he was out of competitive golf for a long time. He's had success at Augusta in the past, tied for 10th here back in 2016, regaining his feel for the game. He's made 6 straight cuts on the PGA Tour. He tied for second back at the Waste Management Open, 20th at the Players. That's kind of regarded as the 5th major, if you will. 2 other top 15s in there. I think Daniel Berger is a guy who could be kind of one of the long shots that might make a play at Augusta this weekend.
Pro handicapper Paul Stone joining us today in the Fast Lane. We're touching on the Masters and what to expect this coming weekend as he joins us here, shifting over from the VTRN Sports app as Virginia Tech Baseball takes over there, but still with VTRN Sports and Fast Lane Ed Lane on our socials, Facebook Live, YouTube, and the podcast platform, Paul. The rest of the Masters leaderboard, as you mention it right now, you gave us kind of, your favorites that you like, your mid-range and your distant players as well. Who do you have your eye on right now as a golfer that a lot of people are high on, but you're skeptical of?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are talking about Justin Thomas, and he's playing well. He's kind of got out of the funk that he was in, for a year or so. But he's had 2 straight missed cuts here at Augusta his last 2 trips. And, I'll kind of apply that Missouri standard to it. He's got to show me. So I'm maybe not as high on Justin Thomas as some people are. Another guy who's probably going to rank, if they were to rank players, 1 through 95 at the Masters, Patrick Cantlay would probably be in a lot of people's, top 15, maybe even top dozen, but he's only had 1 top 10 at Augusta in 8 tries there. So Cantlay might be another guy that I wouldn't be quite as high on, maybe as the general public.
Paul Stone joining us today in the Fast Lane, pro handicapper for the PGA Tour, college basketball and college football. But for the sake of today, it's the PGA Tour because the Masters taking place beginning on Thursday. There are other elements that go into this. Weather is one of those factors. I could be wrong, but it doesn't appear like weather is going to be a storyline for this edition the way it's been in prior years.
I looked yesterday, Ed, and saw that there was just generally on weather.com like a 48% chance of rain on Friday. So I don't know if that's been reduced or not. I haven't looked today. I've been quite busy, but that would certainly, it might be hit and miss. It, might rain a little bit. Doesn't sound like it's going to be a thunderstorm or any kind of all-day event. But, if it does rain on Friday, a guy like Colin Morikawa, who's another guy that I hadn't mentioned yet, who I think could certainly put on the green jacket on Sunday, he's arguably the best iron player in all of golf. And if those greens get soft from a little moisture, I mean, it'll be target practice for Morikawa. He's deadly with those irons. And I think that would play into to his hands if he got a little rain on Friday. Be to his advantage.
Yeah, the percentage of rain has gone down for Friday. It looks like there might be more wind in the 10 to 15 mile an hour range. The rest of it is south, so under 10 miles per hour for Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. At what point when you're monitoring golf does wind start to take effect as something where you go, oh, this could really alter things?
Yeah, I like to look at some of the sites that have hourly forecast, and if it gets up to 18 or 20, it certainly favors the European golfers in general. There's certainly, Texas has some good wind players. We've got some wind in my home state, but guys like Shane Lowry and Roy McIlroy, they certainly don't mind a little wind out there, nor does John Rahm. So, I think it's got to get up to, probably above 15 though. These guys are professionals and they can handle the 15 mile an hour wind. But when it starts getting closer to, in the higher teens and closer to 20, it gets to be a little bit problematic for some of the golfers.
Paul Stone with us here in the Fast Lane, going over all sorts of elements of what he anticipates, including the elements, the weather, for how it would impact things at the Masters. Paul, the favorite part that a lot of our listeners are most interested in is your outrights. You already gave away 3 of them with McIlroy, with Berger, and with Shane Lowry. Who else has got your attention if you want to share all of them, or at least maybe one more with our listeners?
Oh, I'll share all 3, Ed. I've got these dadgum allergies of pollen down here. We live in a yellow haze this time of the year, so
welcome to the club.
Will not start coughing. But Bryson DeChambeau at plus, I got him at plus 1857, so about 18.5 to 1. Guy that had trouble in his early years, kind of figuring out the Augusta puzzle, but last year she's an opening round 65, faded a little bit, but it was his best finish to date at Augusta, tied for 6th. And I just think DeChambeau is a guy who might be in the mix. And then another guy that I hadn't mentioned, Sepp Straka, a little bit better than 70 to 1. He's a guy who tied for 16th in last year's Masters, in great current form. In great current form, tied for 14th at this year's Players. Won the American Express tournament earlier this year. He's a guy who's got he's got the steady demeanor. I think he's a guy who could make some noise. And then Australian and LIV player Cameron Smith. It's always a challenge to figure out as best you can how competitively sharp the LIV guys are, because it's just like a frat party at those LIV events. It's like number 16 at Waste Management Open, just hole after hole, week after week. So who knows how sharp they are. But, man, Smith has played well at Augusta, an impeccable record there, 5 top 10s in his last 7. So I took Cameron Smith. It's 78 to 1.
Paul Stone with us here in the Fast Lane. Paul, we'll wrap it up on this. You've mentioned also oftentimes the value of head-to-head matchups. Is that still where your bread is buttered, even in an event like this?
Absolutely. I won't get too technical or whatever, but, the theoretical hold advantage that a sports book has in the outright markets at most books is going to be 20, 30%, maybe even 40 sometimes. On outright matchups, it's only about 4.5%. So much more favorable mathematically on the matchups. Unfortunately, the matchups are not standard at all books, but a few that I've played at some of the houses that I have access to. I played Daniel Berger at minus 120 over Ben Hahn, played Patrick Reed minus 115 over Wyndham Clark, and also played one of the best putters on the tour, Denny McCarthy, at minus 1.25 over Sam Burns.
Paul Stone with us in the Fast Lane, giving us an overview of his Masters projections and plays. Paul, always love when we're able to catch up. We appreciate your flexibility with us today here in the Fast Lane, and we'd love to catch up again in a couple of weeks when we get closer to the PGA Championship.
Well, hopefully some of the stuff that we talked about today will come to fruition. And in any event, I'll be ready to talk about the PGA Championship. Just give me a call. Love being on with you guys, and hope everybody enjoys this week's Masters.
Indeed, we look forward to it as well. Paul Stone with us here in the Fast Lane to wrap things up today. Fast Lane, Ed Lane, and VTRN Sports on our socials if you missed anything.